Thomas Jonathan Jackson, otherwise known as Stonewall Jackson, was born on January 21, 1824, in Clarksburg, West Virginia. When Jackson was 2 years old, his 6-year-old sister died of typhoid fever. His father, Jonathan Jackson, also died of that same disease a few months later. This left Julia Neal Jackson, the wife of Jonathan Jackson and Stonewall Jackson's mother, left with debt and 3 kids. She remarried in 1830. Stonewall Jackson's stepfather sent Stonewall Jackson and his siblings to live with relatives. Therefore, Stonewall Jackson was raised by an uncle in Jackson Mills in present-day West Virginia. In 1842, Jackson enrolled at U.S. Military Academy at West Point. He worked hard and graduated in 1846. Jackson then joined the Mexican War and was a lieutenant with the 1st U.S. Artillery. He had a tough and brave reputation, and was a brevet major by the end of the war in 1848. Jackson stayed in the military until he became a professor at Virginia Military Institute in 1851. There, he spent 10 years as a professor of artillery tactics and natural philosophy. Although he was disliked by some of his students for his brusqueness and lack of sympathy, in 1853, Jackson married Eleanor Junkin, who died in childbirth 14 months later. In 1857, Jackson married Mary Anna Morrison, and they had a daughter about a year later who lived for only a month. Jackson continued to live in Lexington until he became a colonel in the Confederate Army and went to war. During the first wave of secession from December 1860 to February 1861, 7 southern states declared independence from the Union. Jackson hoped that Virginia would remain in the Union, but when Virginia seceded, Jackson supported the Confederacy. Jackson served briefly as a colonel before receiving a promotion to general under Joseph E. Johnston. The promotion was well-deserved, for Jackson's philosophy that the only true role for cavalry is to follow the enemy as long as he retreats was a great asset and an inspiration for the Confederacy, and therefore helped Confederates have spirit and win battles. Jackson earned his nickname at the First Battle of Bull Run in July 1861, when he rushed his troops forward to close a gap in the line against a determined Union attack. A fellow general commented that he was standing like a stone wall. This is how he got his nickname, Stonewall Jackson. He became a major general in October of 1861, and in spring of 1862, Jackson led the Shenandoah Valley Campaign. He was charged with defending West Virginia from Union troops, and he repeatedly outmaneuvered the larger Union troops and won battles using mobility. Jackson's mobility, knowledge of the terrain, and ability to inspire troops allowed Confederate troops to defeat Union forces sometimes twice their size. By the end of June, Jackson was admired from the North and a war hero in the South. He had prevented North from taking Richmond, and when he joined Lee in June 1862, they were almost unstoppable. Jackson was very determined, and he once said to never fight against heavy odds. Such tactics will win every time, and a small army may thus destroy a large one in detail, and repeated victory will make it invincible. This not only shows how determined Stonewall Jackson was, but how he used strategy to fight and win battles for the Confederacy. From August 1862 to May 1863, Jackson played key roles at battles such as the Second Battle of Bull Run, Antietam, Fredericksburg, and Chancellorsville. With his knowledge of military tactics and his knowledge of terrain, Jackson was invaluable to the Confederacy. Although his officers knew him as secret and difficult to please, Jackson's bravery and success inspired devotion from his army. During the Battle of Chancellorsville in May 1863 in Virginia, there were 130,000 Union troops versus only 60,000 Confederate troops. On May 2nd, Jackson took 28,000 troops on about a 15-mile march while Lee engaged in diversionary tactics at the front. The Union was forced to withdraw only 2 days later. The reason for the Confederate win fell partly on Stonewall Jackson's views, such as how he thought that war means fighting. The business of a soldier is to fight, to move swiftly, strike vigorously, and secure all the fruits of victory is the secret of a successful war. This opinion on war and strategy helped win the Battle of Chancellorsville and helped Confederates continue to fight. Jackson's attack had ended at sunset, and he took men to scout ahead. However, a North Carolina regiment mistook them for the enemy and opened fire, wounding Jackson. Doctors had to amputate his left arm, and he died of pneumonia on May 10, 1863, at the age of 39. The South mourned his death, and Lee had lost a highly valued general. Stonewall Jackson ended up buried at Lexington, Virginia, his hometown. Stonewall Jackson had a huge effect on the Civil War, winning battles and inspiring troops of the Confederacy. His legacy of being an honorable hero for the South still lives in history.